Awesome. So I'm joined with Francesco from Germany. Super excited to have you. Lots of people have told me that you're like a great thinker. You're really, you're really into being an amazing coach and communicator. So, I mean, I let's just open it up, and just see, tell us a little bit about like what you're working on, what your room is like. Just, get us up to speed with what you're working on.
Where should I start?
Right? Anywhere you want.
Anywhere I want. Cool. So what I am exploring right now is periodization of task complexity.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is that, I ended up in this podcast because my name came up in the ecological approach community, let's say, right? And that's what they focus a lot on, nonlinear dynamics, right? And I see them, one way I approach this is from two different points of view, because we could work on we could work with nonlinear dynamics on the technique, more strictly on the technique, or we could work more on tactic and decision making. Mm-hmm. And what I'm experimenting right now when I say periodization of task complexity is to scale the complexity of the task and to move more from more technical based tasks, which are kind of simpler, to mm-hmm. more open tasks where I'm giving less technical cues and more chances to the player. So whether if there's no competition inside, let's say, then I will try to work more on technique, right? Mm-hmm. Let's get better at this family of submission or this family of passes or whatever. But the more we approach the competition day, I will try to make the task wider and wider to the point where I kind of give direction of where they want to end up in an exchange, so to have the upper hand point wise, for example, or simply tactically if it's submission only. If mm-hmm. I don't know if it makes sense what I try to explain, but that's my current work.
What type of so that's a really interesting thing, because I think that's something as coaches that we're trying to always figure out is how do we block and structure practice over, we have a day, we have a week, we have a month, we have a year. How do I make sure that we cycle through? So what type of timeline are you working on when you start thinking of like setting up your periodization of sort of task complexity there?
So that's where I suck at. Because let's say I go with the flow, right? Mm-hmm. I cannot look at the calendar and go like, okay, these 2 weeks we will work like this, and then these 2 weeks we will work like that, and then these final 2 weeks we will work again like this. My brain simply does not work this way. Very simply, at least very simply for me, we will start one way, and then class by class, I will direct it following a bit what goes on the mat. I think when you had, I don't think I heard Britt talking to you about this when he was on your podcast, right? And, part of our ongoing discussion is about the fact that he asked me, what game do you play to do this? And I'm like, the fuck do I know? I can tell you maybe the game that I used to start certain situation, but from that point on, to me is observation of the moment. It's really go with the flow of the class. So it's hard for me to tell you how I periodize over a certain time, because I don't do it sitting in front of the calendar and going like, okay, this week we do this and this week we do that. I know that something is coming, so I will aim to mm-hmm. I will direct the practice in a certain way, but I'm not there yet where I can look at the calendar and divide the days and know already that 2 weeks from now the room will be able to work on a certain thing.
Right. So it sounds like, obviously, and I think this is something that I hear more and more, is like the observation side of being a good coach is so crucial. Watching your room, seeing what's happening, all those things. In a single session, what type of like breadth do you try and cover? Do you try and focus on like one engagement for a whole week? Because, you know, some people want to try and do a little bit of everything every session. Others want to deep dive. How do you like to approach that, and why?
So what I do is we have one main team that we're working on, and I never know how long we're going to work on that team. It depends again how I see the class developing, right? And then you know, in order to refresh their mind during the training session, I might switch to something completely different that maybe we worked a couple of weeks ago, right? But then where I will go from one team to the other depends on what I see emerging on the mat. So I know what we're doing right now, because right now we are back to guard passing, but I don't know 2 weeks from now what we will be working on. I will direct that according to what I see emerging in the room. Now the point is, well, the thing is that even like this, I still aim to have as much variety, not as much, but I aim to have good variety during the training session, and ideally, that thing that Greg says all the time, that you play the whole game. So what I do, we have certain positions that are well known in my room by now, so that I can just call this one position, right? And at every training session we run 3 minutes through almost each one of these positions. It's our positional sparring, we say, right? Where I will not give you instruction, I will just tell you the position you're starting from, and the action stops when there is a pass or a sweep or a submission. Then switch top to bottom and go. So this way, in a 1 hour class, we will have 30 to 40 minutes where we're working on whatever we're working right now. And then those 20 minutes where I will go, okay, guys, now it's positional sparring, and we start cross guard, half guard, open guard, false triangle, back control, arm control, and sometimes some other different position. The main engagement that happened in a jiu-jitsu, maybe not in a jiu-jitsu match, right? But the main engagement that they will go through if they have a tournament with 5 or 6 matches, they are all there every day. There's nothing that gets left behind. Everything keeps being refreshed, right? The free sparring has become by far the less trained part of our week. Nobody feels like we're missing anything, because whatever we're working on is always live, always full resistance. Nobody's drilling. We work non-linear approach, ecological approach, so everything live, full resistance all the time from the first minute of the first round. Then the positional sparring round are sparring, right? They aim to sweep, pass, or submit. So free sparring is just a plus.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because for me, like, free sparring has really dropped a lot. Because when I think of, hey, I have an hour session maybe with most of these people, I want to try and push the needle and help them progress, in a lot of ways. One thing that I thought was sort of interesting, just looking at what you're saying, is how'd you choose those positions for the positional sparring? Because a couple of them I'm like, cool, basic guard stuff, basic pin stuff. But then you're like, you highlighted a couple, like a triangle and an arm bar and a back, or like, how do you decide? Is that just like your school sort of system and point of emphasis, or what led you to select how you selected that?
Well, it's pretty much the main form of guard engagement, right? Close, half, open. The two positions that you will find more often in a submission only format, because more often than not they become the overtime, right? Back control and arm control. And then that's pretty much it, because the main positions that we use for positional sparring is these 5. And then if there is some more time left, I might go front headlock or side control with a kimura locked in, right? side control, but the person on top already has Kimura on my arm, right? So there's always some danger of submission ready. But the reasoning behind starting to use this position was simply that the main guard and the main submission threat, according to the rule, let's say.
Right. So then that's interesting because you cover a lot every session then. Like, you know, like that's really like the frequency at which your students are able to touch on like the key slices. It's actually quite high, you know, because you sort of get a deep dive and then you get to hit 5 really specific slices that are all really high value, right? Like everyone knows training those situations is where you learn a lot of jiu-jitsu, right? Well, so for like the deep dive part of your class, right, do you then remove that from the positional sparring element of class?
Yes.
If there's an overlap, or does it still happen, or what's that look like?
I remove it from the positional sparring part because it's it will be overdoing it. There's no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I guess your positional sparring elements, that sort of helps you, or I'm assuming a lot of times you can use that to decide on what's next, maybe. Do you use it as a diagnostic or looking at it in that way to see how your athletes are performing? Or
yes, to both. Yeah. So it's definitely a diagnostic. That's a very cool term that I still, as of now, and I will start to use. Thank you.
Perfect.
Right. And I observe what happens there also sometimes to pick where we go next. But more often than not, where we go next comes from the deep focus moment of the class, right? Like, look, I can make you an example, okay?
Yeah.
We were working back control. I can tell you how it went the last weeks of deep dive. They more or less. They went like this. We were working back control, right? Then we were working from close guard or half guard to get to the back, right? And then we started to work arm bars and rolling arm bars, because what happened is that very often when they were trying from close guard or half guard to climb to the back, they were finding a chance to go for the arm bar. And they were having a behavior that I believe it's very low percentage when you try to attack an armbar from the bottom. So we addressed that, and we put rolling armbar into the system, let's say, into the behaviors. Yeah. Then we went back to having having, because we were having a submission only tournament the day after tomorrow. We went back to very open game, where it was more about decision making to get the upper hand from being back control or under the mount. Right. And now there is no gi sub only on Saturday, and after that the next tournament will be round robin, gi and no gi, IBJJF rules without advantages. So we are going back to guard passing, because in one IBJJF rules without advantages, guard passing is where most of the points will get scored.
Right.
So this is how I'm directing things right now.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great progression or regression, however you want to look at it. I have a question for you. Do you run the same activities all week long, or do you also do throughout the week variation, or do you have like a set block that, okay, Monday through Friday we'll work on this, and then you'll come at it from a different lens the following week?
No, look, like I said before, I still suck at looking at the calendar and periodize like that. So if we're doing something, until it's something else emerges and take us there. So I never actually really know how long we are staying on one topic, right?
Right. So within the week, you could be like, first half of the week you had a whole intention, and you see people maybe really pick it up faster than you anticipated, or you got what you wanted. So hey, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you move on more or less. You don't really stay with it for an arbitrary reason.
Yeah, it's very rare that we go less than 2 weeks on something. Very rare.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow that because look, if tomorrow I see some very shitty behavior happening around whatever we are doing, I will need to tackle that immediately. I cannot. Okay, wait. But this week we are still doing right. This. I try to to chop immediately if I see it necessary.
Yeah. Question for your sessions, because you mentioned the club is pretty big. You have a lot of students. So are you running all levels sessions? Do you have like a foundations and more experienced, or how do you like to approach that?
I run all level sessions together. I don't distinguish beginners and advanced or fundamentals and everything. So what I do is I keep the first engagement fairly easy, right? So easy that even the trial session guy can do them with a reasonable chance of success.
Right.
And then from there I can start to scale it. But if there are people who are less experienced or trial session guy, I can always tell them, okay, look, we are making it more complex, but you remember the first task you had today? That task is true for the whole day because it's the basic of everything that comes after. So if you don't feel like going to the next station of the roadmap, stay where you are and get good at that, and you'll get a great training just from that. Make sense?
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely. Something I try and focus on. Did you always run in all levels, or was that more of a thing that you moved towards when you started trying to play a lot more live with resistance all the time, or?
The more I started to work with nonlinear and full resistance, the more all level kind of blended together. Right?
Yeah, I had the same experience. I was like, I don't know if there's really this distinction anymore in that sense, as long as I can be good at sort of managing the frequency of what we touch on. And I guess that task complexity too, starting simple allows it to always be super accessible to someone throughout the whole session.
Like when we were working back control, right? So the first task of the lesson, of the class, would have been super simple. Guy on my back cannot cross the hands, cannot cross hands, cannot connect hands, cannot cross the feet, okay? And stay chest to back as long as possible. What I have to do is simply to turn to face you. That would have been the first class for when we were working back control, right? First task, first game, let's say. And you see that this kind of game, even if you are trial session guy, is immediately understandable. And also the reason behind is understandable. I don't think I need to explain anyone why, if I'm on your back, is in your best interest to turn to face me, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. And now, look, if you're interested, I can make you from here the example of going technical or going strategical, right?
Let's do it.
Because this is really fresh. This is a really fresh work we had in the gym. So first task, you're on my back. You cannot connect your hands. You cannot cross your feet. You have to stay chest to back as long as possible. What I will try to do is simply to turn to face you. And it does not matter if when I turn to face you, I'm inside your guard or I'm under your mount. Because most of the time, this is what happens, right? If we are sitting and you are behind me, I start to spin, we will mostly go in two directions. Either I spin and now I'm guard top, or I spin and now I am bottom mount. These are the two other things happens, but these are the two major things that are going to happen starting from there, right? So if we are working more technical, more on submissions, let's say, right? What you do when you are there. Then I could, for example, move the task and, okay, you are chest to back. I could explain basic of body positioning. So until I want to control you, if I just want to control you, my hip will be very much aligned with your hip and my shoulder will be very much aligned with your shoulders. But from control, I want to move into any form of submissions from the back. I will need to engage my hip much more with your shoulders than with your hip. Otherwise, I'm too low on your body to actually perform submission, right? I need to engage my hip to your shoulders if we want to do submission. So the next game, the next step will be exactly that. Engage the hip with the shoulders. And now from there, sometimes you are in a forced triangle from the back. Sometimes if we're training with the gi, you start to have, all the grip and legs around the shoulders. And there we can start to see submissions, right?
Right.
So I can take slices of submission and ask you to focus on, prerequisite for those submissions. And now we go there. We approach competition. I have to start to shift. It's not I have to, but this is my experiment, let's say. And now I shift more into decision making. So what I will tell you is, okay, look, this is the starting position. We know that while I'm trying to submit you and you try to spin to face me, most of the time we were going to teach two direction, right? So now imagine this situation. Most probably I'm also ahead with points. So if now you turn to me and you are into my close guard and there's 40 seconds left on the clock, you're not going to pass the guard and score the points that you need to win that match, right?
Right.
Because a close guard is, is a position where I can stall you for until the end. So what I want you to do, what I want you to consider is that while you are spinning to face me, you need to avoid that I close my leg so that you can go immediately into guard pass. Same, if when you spin, you start to go under the mount, it's not enough to be, it's not enough to face me. You also need your legs engaged so that you can immediately start to go into a sweep. You cannot afford dead time between, turning, being under the mount, start to escape the mount. No, while you're escaping, your legs need to be inside already so that you can start to work sweep, or maybe you want to stand up, anything, right? So the directions that I will give right now are this kind of direction. Is more, where you go than specific on what you do, and go perform. Clock is ticking, run.
Yeah. With the it's curious, I'd be really curious, what was your whole implementation of adding in the whole, or not adding in, but thinking from a more non-linear sort of live resistance? What was your day one? What were you doing before, and how did you sort of transition to moving the room to a lot more live and things like that? Because I think that's something that everyone did a little bit differently. Some of us were already towing the line, playing some sort of games, or Rob Bernanke has fuck your jiu-jitsu type stuff. Some people were sort of treading along, and some people just went from straight old school dead drilling, whatever, teaching in a very sequential manner to flipping it. What was your journey like?
I've never, when I was a brown belt, I started to teach. Okay, I got hired in a gym, and I was the jiu-jitsu and MMA coach, and actually in Germany for quite a long time I've been known more as an MMA coach than a jiu-jitsu coach. Now I shifted a lot more into jiu-jitsu, but I'm missing MMA. I hope to go back to coach professional MMA fighters, because the challenge is higher there. Anyway, sorry. So yes, when I started to work in this gym, and I was a brown belt, and in those years, Kit Dale was the very vocal champion of conceptual learning, right? He would not call it ecological approach. We were not there yet, but he will talk about learning concepts and how to structure practice differently for optimal memory retention. He would have all this kind of conversation. I actually met the guy. He had a seminar I invited him to the gym for a seminar, so he was 2 days with me and questions, all the time. Explain me this, explain me that, and he has been extremely friendly, and he truly answered everything, right? So that gave me a good help in this direction, because I was more interested in teaching conceptually than teaching technique and drills and stuff like that. I had my moment where I was trying high repetition drills, Atos style, let's say. But I guess my brain simply does not work like that. While I can organize myself much better around concepts and everything else. And then always into years, I got in contact again with Ottavio Cotto, right? And also Ottavio was a very peculiar teacher, right? And very, very, very smart person. And what he will do, he will put you, he would not teach technique, right? Not as in, prescriptive process of how you do something. He will put you in a situation and he would explain you what a preferable behavior would be in a certain situation, right? If you move your body in a certain ways, you get this reaction. If you want to put your weight on a certain spot, you cannot bend that way, right? Keep your elbow closed, right? It will give you mechanical cues, and then he would let you work into that situation to see what happens once he gives you mechanical cue. Also Tavio definitely didn't know about ecological approach, nonlinear dynamics, but his teaching style was definitely closer to this than to prescriptive
Right.
technique explanation. That was my inspiration when I started to actually teach. But I always felt like I was having one foot inside, one foot out. You know what I mean? Because
totally.
a lot of holes in my explanation, I had to fill them with prescriptive. Put the hand here, put the foot there, do it 10 times. But I see that more as a shortcoming of my personal experience. How good was I back then?
Right.
Right? Yeah. And this went on until last, like 1.5 years ago, more or less, 2 years maybe. So I had one epiphany, the Captain Obvious moment. I had this super stupid Captain Obvious moment where I realized that I should stop trying to teach Ottavio's material the way he teaches it, and Brit material the way he teaches it, and Wim's material the way he teaches it. I should stop doing that. I should teach their stuff the way I can teach, in a way that makes sense for me to teach it, right? So that and keep reading it about gamification of jiu-jitsu. That was the term back then. At some point, which is more or less when I started to hear about Souders with his first podcast on mental models and those things, right? So I said, okay, you know what? 3 months, whatever had the hell happen, even if everyone leaves me and if I make everything wrong, right? Make it or break it. For 3 months, I will not teach a single technique. Everything has to be done situational, live, with resistance. Let's see what happens. And I fucked up a lot of classes. I still fuck them up every now and then, right? But those 3 months became 1.5 years now, probably more. Yeah, and no intention of going back whatsoever. The more I dig into all the conversation about ecological approach, nonlinear dynamics, everything, the more I'm right.
Yeah, that's funny. We had a very similar way to approach it. Where like when I was like, because I was similar to you, I had started playing with some like gamification, some more conceptual teaching, and then I just was like, okay, cool. I'll just commit to a month. You're a little more bold than I was ready to commit to a straight month, but like halfway through that month, I was already like, there's no reason I would go back, because I was watching my like students' enjoyment, just the way they were training, and like because I was so curious, I was asking a lot of feedback from the students like every session. Would you like most? What was that like? And I got feedback that I didn't expect over time, like where guys like, oh, I really feel like unstuck in my jiu-jitsu suddenly, because they were forced to develop things. And, I find one of the biggest things is everything is useful now, right? I'm sure we all have that experience where when you used to go to a session, you're like, bro, I will never try that in my life. When someone's showing you a move or a series. And now I find like, my students, like everything's relevant. It's so hard to be irrelevant when you're just playing the game, you know, in the major transitions and the major scenarios. Is that something that you sort of like heard, or like how have your students, you know, reacted to this? 'Cause I'm sure several of them were already training in the old method and whatever. What was that like when you just flipped the switch all the way?
I think they all adapted pretty quick. All the feedback that I received from going this direction has been extremely positive. They're just happy, you know. But you know what? Yeah, that's the term. They are happier. The atmosphere in the gym changed.
Yeah,
Because everything is simply, you know, playful. Everything got more playful. And now instead of getting stuck and nervous about not being able of doing something, now they want to try a trick.
Yeah.
The younger guys, you see them rolling, and the way they behave, the way they talk to each other, they look much more like skateboarder at the park, trying, you know, let's see if I can do this, right? So the experimentation and the simple enjoyment of anything that we're doing went through the roof, really. But not just that, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It's just been like, you know, that playfulness is such a positive thing, because I don't see people stuck in their head in a session anymore. You know, you can see people, whether it's a self-doubt about, am I doing this thing the right way, or what do I do next? Like, I don't catch my students like thinking as much as I could, because there used to be a time where I could see like, oh, you're trying to figure out what's next. Whereas now I find people are just, I'm going to try this thing and I'll try this next thing, and who cares? You know, like the who cares element is sort of nice, where before like everything was a crushing defeat or a miraculous win. Now it's just playing jiu-jitsu or playing, you know, whatever it is. And that culture changed, because I already tried to like promote that, but it took this to really make it be like real. Now I feel like people are coming in, it's just like, you know, you go to the rec center and you play a game of like pickup basketball. You're just there having fun, you know, maybe we'll try and dunk on this guy, maybe it won't work, it doesn't really matter, you know. But yeah, I find that to be just such a huge thing, and I think it makes them much more capable to learn, because they're just sort of like in flow. You know, like a little bit of a flow state there, you know, instead of just 10 minutes of class where they get to spar and be that way. Now it's the whole session. I think it just really has expanded their capacity for learning as a result, because they're having fun, you know, just having fun the whole time.
Yeah. And I bet it happened to you too, to having visiting students from places where normally they would go, you know, warm up technique, sparring, barely making it to the end of the class.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Because the
do you have a lot of visitors?
Not a lot of visitors, because I'm not very centrally located. Right, I'm nearby Frankfurt, which is a pretty big city with one of the biggest airport in Europe. But you know, I'm still like 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers outside. Right. So, but I get a decent numbers of visitors, so you know,
because like
pass by.
I have visitors and they always love it, and they're always super, like, I find one thing they constantly remark on, I'm curious if you start to hear it, is they really comment on my students' movement. Like, you know, like they move, like everyone moves well. I'm like, bro, that's hilarious, because like it's not like I've taught any movement, or like we haven't done like a shrimp or a break fall or any line drill or anything like that. They've just played so much that they know where they want to move to. I think more than anything is they know where they want to go now.
Direction. Right.
Yeah. How have this is something that has popped up a little bit. How has your view of like grading students changed? You know, because like I used to think of like a blue belt had to know some things. Now I'm like, you don't really need to, like, it's an interesting thing, because it popped up in like a discussion with another friend of mine. It's like, do you notice that like the guys who now I would think are ready for a blue belt, like they're way different than what I used to sort of consider as being like ready for a blue belt, you know? Or how's that changed for you, if at all?
You are kind of forcing me to think about, because I don't, you know, I take my time to grade everyone, right? There's standard time in my gym, if you train, is a couple of years at your belt. probably more,
Right.
right? So to me, it just happens that at some point it's clear that you can get the next belt, right? The best indication for me, of course, is go to a tournament and show me that you really don't belong to that division anymore, right?
Do you have a lot of students that compete?
No, I have a few, and they're starting now to compete more regularly. But look at the background, right? I opened the gym August 2018, sorry, 2019. So we opened the gym August 2019 outside of the main metropolitan area in a not that big town where there was no jiu-jitsu before, only kickboxing, right? So everything that I have on the mat is people who started as white belt with me 4 years ago. Take away one and a half starting March 2020 for those interesting years. So yeah, because I'm outside the city, I don't get the purple brown belt that switch gym or they're attracted to the method, right? I'm a bit more outside, isolated, so everything is homegrown. So we're starting now to have purple belts and a few people interested in competition.
Nice. I'm wondering what sort of like a interesting you wanted to talk, or you had mentioned want to talk about variability of switching partners and things like that. What are you playing with there?
Oh yeah, because you were talking about that with Greg, right? About keeping one partner for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Greg actually talked about keeping a partner for the whole training session. We switch partner continuously. So
what does that look like in practice?
It looks like this. Look, let's say we are an uneven number on the mat, okay? 17 people on the mat, 21, uneven number on the mat, right? Now everybody's a partner but one. Okay, perfect. So, in the game, there is a winning condition. If you win, you stay. Loser gets out, get replaced by whoever is free at that moment, and you always switch your role.
Right.
And now we go maybe one round of 5 minutes like this, right? So you get to continuously switch top and bottom or back and forth or whatever, continuously switch partner. And one effect of continuously switching partner is that the pace stays much higher than if I leave you 3 or 5 minutes with one guy. Because if I leave you 3 minutes with one guy, the pace will start to slow down. You start to know each other at whatever you are doing.
Right.
But if every time the situation is over, you get a new guy, you're starting again 100% intensity because it's a new challenge coming to you.
Yeah. That's
Right?
super interesting because it's not like, most often people think like, oh, I'll set it up as like a Shark Tank or whatever. But this is how you're just approaching every little round. If we're odd, there's going to be a rotation that just happens across the room.
Yeah. And everybody get exposed to everybody, right? All the kind of bodies, all the kind of pressure, anything that is available on the mat comes at you during the class.
I really like that because, my solution to that situation is like, okay, I have one group of 3 that I'm going to make be top, bottom, out, and everyone else gets to do the partnered work for straight time or whatever. But this is like a much better solution in that sense because it sucks when you're the only person in the group of 3, right? Like, it's just not the same experience. I'm going to play with that tonight. I'm going to give it a shot, see how that goes. Because for sure I'm going to have an odd class, It's very rare you get the perfect, matchup or perfect set of people in there, or even number, rather. How long have you been playing with that? Did you just do it out of necessity? Or were you thinking about it? Was that like the main way that you introduced partner switching?
I just didn't want that one guy to sit out for a full round or stuff like that, right? So I thought, okay, you know what? We went like this. Was just brain fart, but it was a brain fart that worked.
Yeah.
And everybody's used to this system in the gym now, right? it became simply part of how we train in the gym. Nobody has an issue with it, and I don't need to explain it anymore, right? I go, okay, guys, you know how it works. Winner stay, loser get replaced. Switch your role every time. Go.
How do you encourage variability when you're even then? Like, what do you like to do in that situation to make sure they get a lot of different touches on people? Do you...
If you're even, I might go like, okay, one round on the top, one round on the bottom, right? But even when we're even, if there is enough people on the mat, when the situation is over, stand up, grab a new partner, try to switch your role every time, and it goes. And you still have, very, very high switch. People will switch partner a lot.
Right. And is that after a round? Like, for example, I had 3 minutes attacking, you had 3 minutes attacking, boom, now we go find new partners, or just within the...
No. Even if we are even, I can play like this, right? So I will set the round maybe at 5 minutes instead of 3, right? And every time the situation is over, stand up, look around, somebody also is just standing up and looking around. There's your new partner. If you were playing top, try to play bottom. Go.
Nice.
Yeah, we switch partner all the time through the class, and mostly for so I started to work like this mostly to keep everyone working and not having the odd guy sitting out. But then I realized, oh wow, look at the pace. The pace is never going down now, because every time they get a new partner, they just go in. If I leave you 3 minutes with one person, right, and now for one person you're trying to for one round you're trying to pass his guard, towards the end of the 3 minutes you will start to to chill it a bit more.
Right.
But the new partner is always the new challenge. You just go.
Do you do that for every game, or do you sometimes have straight time where like I'll get 3 minutes straight with my partner and then we'll switch top and bottom, or do you try and have the constant switch the whole time?
Sometimes we have 3 minutes on the top, 3 minutes on the bottom, but most of the time we switch continuously. Yeah. The whole jiu-jitsu experience in my gym has become much more requiring from a conditioning point of view, and outsiders notice that, because even if the class is 60 minutes, I had people after 45 minutes and like, okay, so dude, I'm done, right? Because after working 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes on whatever you're working to the week, live resistance 100%, going 100% all the time, switching partner continuously, so not getting the psychological reason to slow down. After 30-40 minutes like this, okay guys, positional sparring, close guard, go. And now it's positional sparring, right? And everybody's fighting for sweep, pass, or submission.
Man, I really like that. I need to implement. I assume in the beginning, you gotta train the room on how to switch partners effectively and not waste time
It gets confusing. You'll see people wandering around like this. Oh, what should I do now? What were you doing? Top, do bottom. Go, hurry.
Right. Yeah, I love it though, because like if you think of all the things we want, hey, of course we want variability, but just for building like a great culture, to be able to have everyone always hopping in with everyone else, building that, all those different connections, and man, just so much more time doing jiu-jitsu, because you do make a really good point. By the 2 minute mark of a 3 minute round, someone has lessened their intensity or lessened their focus, or because that fatigue hit. Yeah. I guess it's great because every switch is a little 10-second break for me to walk from this side to that side.
Yeah, but now you are starting all over again. You're starting with maximum intensity again, because the guy in front of you is a new challenge. You didn't pass him yet, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I'm hyped. I'm going to try and play with that tonight because I really like that idea. Because the more, I've been trying to play more and more, how can we interact? And I'm sure you heard, the way I usually like to do it. But, yeah, that's good.
But at the beginning, it's very confusing because, people need to get to the rhythm. They need to kind of understand what you're doing, right? But once they are used to, I can say, at least in my gym, it works well. Not with kids.
Yeah.
Impossible to do that with kids. Impossible, right? If you try to do that with kids, suddenly you have 6, 7, 8 kids that are looking at you. Who should I go now? Not with kids. With kids, you just give them a partner and they play whatever they have to play with that one. Yeah.
Right. Are most of your games and stuff that you design then, they have like really like, start, stop, like when you hit this condition, reset, or do you play many games that are more continuous in nature where, you're here as often as you can, try and be like, holding the knee line. Hey, it doesn't end. You just have a thing you want to try and maintain as long as possible. Or do you tend to be more of the start, stop type of guy?
I kind of mix them up. Yeah. I think I'm imbalanced towards start, stop kind of game. But I try to mix them up. Like right now that we're starting a game working on guard passing, like I was telling you before, I'm trying to use more continuous game where where one condition has to be true all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't let their feet touch you.
Right.
And just stay there and do not pass. Just don't let their feet touch you. But yeah. So yeah, I do that, but again, most of the time we orbit towards start and stop game.
When it comes to like designing a game or a practice activity, what's sort of your like mental process? Because for me, I have like a couple quick ways that I usually think of it. It's either a game that's really focused on like precursors to something good that I want to happen. It's either more of a control scheme game where we're focused on maybe denial of one person's, or like I have a couple like frameworks that I think of that help me quickly make a game out of whatever my focus is. How do you like to try and like approach game design in that sense?
Good question. Because as I said, I really suck at this. Okay, I don't think too much ahead. I mean, well, I do that, but what I meant, I don't sit at home thinking, what games are we going to play today, right? Because I know what we did today. I know what problems or what good things emerged from what we were doing today. So I know tomorrow we will go in a certain direction, and we will start from the basic game that I'm using for whatever we are diving in these days, and then I will adapt from there. Everything I do is very much on the flow, on the moment, right? So how do I design the game? Probably I don't. Probably I just create what I need at the moment, messing it up sometimes. I try to do a bit of preparation at home, but if I don't see the things happening, it's hard for me to, okay, can you think of a game and know that game is gonna work without actually seeing it in the room, without actually seeing a bunch of guys going at it?
Yeah, no, you can't, especially because there's so many things that can like influence it,
see?
Whether it goes the way you want it.
This is the problem I have with curriculum. And the problem I am with the question, what kind of games do you play? The fuck do I know? It's not the games. It's not the games I want to play. It's the games that the guy need.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, right?
Yeah, very much.
Okay, look, this makes me think of something that it's been on my head a very, very long time, right? When you go prescriptive, right, and you want to teach the technique, and you go like, oh, today we teach this pass from spider guard. Mm-hmm. It always feels to me like you go home. No, not you personally. Yeah,
right.
I say you, but I'm not talking about you. It's just an impersonal you, right? So I imagine this person going home and saying a random match on YouTube, and from that random match on YouTube, he goes like spider guard pass. And then the day after, he goes to the gym. Okay, today we do spider guard pass. Why? On YouTube yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That is too common. But yeah,
too common. But please know, right? I go to the gym and I see what my guys need right now, and we're working that. I don't work stuff that I found interesting this morning.
Right.
Right? So
When you're looking at your room and you're deciding what to work on, are you like, because obviously now we're being responsive to the room. What segment is it that you look at for that? Like, because you have an all level situation, right?
Yeah.
That you mentioned. So of course you have less experience, more experienced, just so much variety in the room. Like, how do you pinpoint, or what do you sort of use to decide? Is it like what the majority needs help on, or a couple, I just want to know about that decision-making process.
it's just stuff that clearly, punches me in the face. Like we were working front headlock, and if I look around the room, I see a bunch of guys failing the guillotine because once they have the guillotine, they throw themselves back, shoulders to the floor, right? And they lose the guillotine like this because they are throwing themselves away from the guillotine. And I see it happening one time there, and then I see another guy doing it, and then I see another guy that it happens to another guy. Okay, the round is over. Guys, this thing happened a bunch of times. It shouldn't. I would prefer that you behave like this. Or clear, let's go again in the round. So, look, let me organize. Because I had these discussions about how you teach non-linear and, why you don't teach technique and why you don't teach details and or stuff like that. It's not that as a coach that was really diving as much as possible into non-linear systems and ecological approach, it's not like I'm not teaching technique, right? But if it's not needed by the room, I'm not bringing it up. Because again, I will not bring to the gym something that catches my curiosity this morning on YouTube. So first of all, if it's not needed by the room, I will not bring it up. We will work on stuff that is immediately relatable to pretty much everyone, right? Second, I can perfectly show you a technique, as in, if you are in this situation, you can do an armbar like that. That requires that emerged already. So I don't need you to drill that armbar in a vacuum. Guillotine example, right? The example of the guillotine, for example. Right? Let's say we're working front headlock, okay? Well, this is how it went on that day. I can really give you the explanation, right? So we were working front headlock. First task of the day, person on top, connect to the arm. You can connect to the arm and to the chin of the person under you. Try to keep their head under you and maintain chest to back connection and stay there as long as possible. Person on the bottom, what you want to do is to bring your head outside of the shadow of the person on top so that you can look at their back and see if that helps you to chase the back, right? Every time the situation is over, because, having this direction, now you're suddenly doing something else because maybe the guy is chasing your back or the guy took the head out and now he's in a half guard, right? So every time you're not working this anymore, winner stays, loser gets replaced, right? Or new partner, whatever, okay? And this was the first task. Now from this task, what do? Okay, we're working more on what happens for the person on top than for the person on the bottom. So because we are working more the role of the person on top, I will not change the task of the person on the bottom. Make sense? Right? So the task of the person on the bottom will be the same for the class. The person on the bottom will always try to take the head, to rotate so that the head gets out of the shadow of the person on top. Now you're seeing their back, start to chase their back, whatever happens, it happens. Person on top, first task was controlling. Now you also want to connect your hand and see if you get any form of arm in strangle. then we can insert also the naked strangle. And when we are at the naked strangle stage, a lot of guys will, even guys to whom I did not clearly explain the guillotine, yeah, but if I can keep a point on this, then we can talk about something else later, right? So guillotine starts to happen, right? But a lot of people lost the guillotine because when they had the neck, they were kind of sitting and throwing themselves back. Okay,
Right.
So yeah, you notice situations, you can perfectly see them happening. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So now, what do? Do I explain them how the guillotine works and let them try the guillotine? Okay, guys, look, this is happening across the room. You are having this behavior. This is actually the terminology I use. Yeah? You're having this behavior. Once you have the guillotine, you sit on your ass and you throw yourself back, because you have this picture in your mind of how to finish the guillotine. So you are running towards that picture, forgetting everything about connection, body positioning, body weight, everything. Please don't do that.
Right.
You want to stay there and try to finish it without losing top position. If the guy under you, with his movement, forces you on the bottom, your job is still to cover him with your shoulder and keep squeezing, right? This is the behavior that I would like to see from you when you end up in a naked strangle from front. Drill the technique. But I can give them, I can explain them what behavior will give them better results and put them directly back again into the live situation, into the live scenario, and now they'll be doing it. They'll still be doing a few mistakes here and there, but now they will also start to get it done properly. Make sense? So right? So it's not like I don't explain technique, but I will explain it when you need it, and when you don't need to train it in a vacuum. Right? If you can directly put it into the live situation that you are working right now, that's the moment where I can tell you what kind of behaviors are preferable, right? Probably more successful than other behaviors, right? So it's not like because I teach ecologically or non-linearly, I don't pass information, I don't teach details, I don't teach technique, right? I just teach them. I just convey the information differently and at a different moment. It's a different moment where I think it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. After they've already had a failure or a challenge point, the feedback becomes actually relevant then. Whereas front-loading it, which is the problem, right?
Exactly. But that's the point, right? What you said, after they had the failure. Because that's, in my opinion, that's a big mistake of many coaches. They correct too much. They correct too much. I need you to fail. I need you to, I will put you in a position and I know that you will do certain mistakes and I will let you do them. I need you to experience those mistakes. I need you to know that if you put your hands there, you are going to get caught. Because look, I can tell you 100 times that if you grab their head while you are passing, they will go to the back. But if you don't experience it, you just don't know it. It does not matter that I told you. You will still do it because you did not experience it. So I prefer that you pass, you do that very beginner, very instinctive thing of grabbing their head. Now they're on your back. I let it happen 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now when I tell you, dude, you need an underhook, okay? Not the head. Do not pass if you don't have an underhook. I do not allow you to pass if you don't have an underhook, okay? Go back into the situation. Now the guy knows what I'm talking about and can immediately implement the behavior, the strategy, the technique, whatever we're talking about. Make sense?
Beautiful. And I think that's a really good point about one, like letting them experience the problem. But one thing you sort of mentioned that like maybe I can be bad at is you let them experience the problem enough to the real pain point where what you say next will really it'll stick just a little bit better. You know, when you didn't just do it the first time that they lost the back or lost the pass. You did it, let them fail, because now they can really resonate with what you say next because their attention is like, man, I don't want that to happen anymore. Whereas if it just happens once off and you intervene so soon, we sort of take the learning experience away from them because we didn't let them have that like the emotional side of it, like the pain that makes it
burn
resonate.
Your finger.
Yeah. Do you have other coaches that also coach sort of the same way, or do you run the majority of your sessions? Or I imagine with the school your size, obviously not the case, but how did you approach that?
I teach a lot of classes, like a real lot of classes, right? But I also have four other coaches in my gym, and they are all professional, full employees, and their job is teaching. So I know it sounds a bit bad, but they can teach what they want. They have to teach it the way I want. Right. So we have our weekly coaches meeting where we discuss what we're teaching and how we're teaching it, and I try to keep everything non-linear, including kickboxing, wrestling, MMA, kids, adults, everything. The general vibe of the gym is that ecological approach on for everything, including kickboxing.
Right. Well, when it came to getting your coaches like up to speed, let's say, on sort of some of the things that you're thinking about or like emphasize, were you just the teller of like the ideas, concepts? Did you push them to read and research on their own? Did you find what did you find was necessary to make them effective?
I honestly had a bit of resistance at the beginning, even from the trainers of my own gym. You mentioned that. I had a bit of resistance, right? But to a degree, I didn't mind because same as in class, I need you to fail a few times before I can actually easily explain you what behavior I need you to follow for better results. Same for the coaches. I need them, they need their own experience, right? So of course I was pushing, and I put them in front of the book and long list of YouTube video, Souders classes, podcasts, and everything else. But mostly, being the head coach, whatever that means, I do the research for them, and then I deliver the package, we discuss it, and they're also trying to implement more and more and more. And sometimes, sometimes they mess up class. Sometimes I also mess up a lot of classes, right? Like today's class on guard passing, I'm absolutely unhappy with how it came out. At some point I was like, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, it's normal, right? It's normal, and
I was gonna say that's so normal of the experience. I think it's hard because like previously coaching can be so clean. I just come show this thing, I walk away, flawless victory. If they didn't get it, it's their fault. Whereas now it's all sort of a lot more onus on us.
If they don't get it, it's my fault. I fucked up the class, right? So I have this guideline, when I explain stuff, I think, okay, if my mom is sitting in the corner, if my 75 years old mother is sitting in the corner, she needs to understand what I'm explaining, what the task is. That's my guideline, right? So sometimes I'm pretty sure that she wouldn't understand. But that's the guideline. No. The interesting thing is that the newest coach that we added to our roster, the newest trainer that joined my gym, is a sports psychologist and ecological dynamics and stuff like that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the level of conversation really increased thanks to the fact that now we have this guy in the team, and it's extremely interesting. You know, the coaching meeting, the coaches meeting on Friday now is, it became much more valuable also for me. I'm also learning a lot from this guy, and but I can say without fear of sounding arrogant or anything that is extremely happy with how we are applying ecological approach in my jiu-jitsu classes at least. So we're doing something in the good direction apparently.
Mm-hmm. Did that new coach have any sort of insights or things that you had not considered in your practice applications that like really resonated with you or made a difference so far? Or is it, yeah.
Is with us since 20 days, more or less, a bit more. So, we're still digging a lot of topics. Definitely, it definitely helped. Like today, it could directly pinpoint why the tasks were failing. So I know already tomorrow what I will do differently, right? And that's a big help for me already.
You want to share what that was? What was the thing you had designed, and what was the flaw that he felt that was sort of contributing to it?
Okay, look, I can be very precise with this, right? So as I say, we're going back to guard passing, right? So first game, bottom person wants to make connection to you with feet and hand, and everything you want to do is to deny that connection. Do not let them touch you with their feet or with their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Done. And I started to have problems there because I've noticed that a lot of people were passing, right? And I'm like, okay, guys, stop. Wait a moment. I'm not asking you to pass. I just want you to stay in that condition where you are not allowing them to make connection and practice that, right? We can look at guard passing like climbing a ladder. You will have to pass the line of the feet, pass the line of the knee, then you will have to control the line of the hip. And from controlling the line of the hip, once you get a flag into their armpit, you will go, depending on how they move, sometimes chest to chest, sometimes chest to back. Okay, so we will slice this. First task is about the line of the feet. Don't let them make connection. Good. Second task was pass the line of the feet, get to the line of the knee, stay there as long as possible. From the bottom, you can either stand up or bring your feet back. So you go back to the ladder, right? So that your feet are in front again, and now we are back at not having the feet touching you. And again, conquer the line of the knees. So it's possible. Well, it's not possible. I'm pretty sure that when I explained it in class, probably was not so clear, if this was clear at all, right? And you're smiling, so it was not that clear even now.
It was clear.
Right?
It's funny, yeah. It was clear, perfectly clear.
Yeah, it was not clear today in class, and it looked messy. And a lot of people, especially the more advanced people, they were just passing eventually, right? So the cues that Aris gave me, this new trainer with his background in nonlinear dynamics, is that one, the bottom guy probably had too many tasks to accomplish, and it would have been enough to just ask him to keep searching for connection with the feet, even if they are at the level of the knee, keep searching for the connection on the feet. And two, that I was maybe also being too harsh with myself, because it was the first day, not the second day. We started yesterday. It was the first day working on this situation, and there were also a few new guys on the mat. So a bit of mess and inconsistency was to be expected. I'm not so sure about this second point, but even the fact that he could simply point out, look, too many directions for the guy on the bottom. For me, it's like, fuck, yes, you're right. it's extremely helpful. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You are messing up a class and you don't even understand why, and you need that external input where that tiny thing is wrong. Well, not wrong, or maybe too much, or maybe missing. Because I find that compared to a prescriptive approach where I will go to the gym and I will just tell them where to put their hands and feet and now do it 10 times. If instead I have to create situations so that certain behaviors emerge, man, the chances of fucking it up are way higher. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Way higher. Yeah, but guess what? I chose to be a coach. I'm supposed to be a professional. So
yeah, and the thing is like your language never became more important than it is now. I find, because like, man, I can describe the same. I can just use the wrong phrase, and now this whole thing fell to shit. That's I think sometimes the biggest challenge is, am I even, because if we're just targeting their attention and those things, what you say matters more than ever before. And it can be hard for a lot of coaches. Was that a thing you struggled with? Like, do you find the way you describe jiu-jitsu and like understand jiu-jitsu has changed now because of being forced to sort of...
A lot.
Yeah. A lot. Do you feel like you're better at jiu-jitsu now?
I understand it better. I see much more clear I see much more clearly what's happening in a match or during a game with with the people in the room. I see it much more clearly. If my personal jiu-jitsu has become better, that I wouldn't know because I suck at jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But I definitely see so much better what's happening. I can unpack it. It's much easier than before. That for sure.
Yeah, I think that the ability to unpack it is sometimes what can be most challenging initially, because you're doing so many things, perhaps subconsciously at that point, that you don't realize that I'm actually really focused on making this effect happen in this person at all times. I was just passing guard, whatever passing guard meant, and you weren't really thinking of it. Like, even here, like, you just unpacked a little bit of jiu-jitsu for me too, because hey, I talk about the line of the feet, the line of the knees, but I talk about the hip, but I never talk about controlling the hip. And then it's, getting to the line of the shoulder or whatever, like just these little things of like clarity as you try to really unpack jiu-jitsu in the simplest way. Because like you, I try and see like, man, how can I get the trial class guy to pass guard? Or how can I get the trial class guy to wrestle up? Or like, make these things happen that I know I want to happen. And a lot of it is the language and how can I unpack it in the simplest of simple ways.
That's to a degree, that's the study of a lifetime, seriously. I really try to go for minimalism, we could say. Right? I want to have the most minimalistic possible approach. Not approach, but I need to find that 0.0, that super core thing that I need to take away everything I can possibly take away until I really cannot take away anything else. Right? And I try to do that both with the sport, so with the map of the map of what jiu-jitsu is, but also MMA, right? And the truth, I try to do that also with the way I coach, right? So I want to talk as less as possible when I explain the room what they're supposed to do. It shouldn't be the case that the explanation of the task is longer than the round you are going to play the task.
Right. Yeah, that would be awful. It wasn't uncommon though, but I know. Yeah.
It would be awful. It is awful, but it happens.
Yeah, that's a constant sort of battle. That's why, like, I've really tried to say it a little as possible and be doing those between rounds, little like new attention points, and stack
the
it in
cues.
between. Yeah, and that's why I
Yeah.
try and play like the same game, same tasks, but multiple rounds, multiple switching, so that I can sneak in more cues that are like immediately relevant to what I see in the room. But it's so easy. It's so tempting to be like, man, I already know the most common things. Let me just point their attention to it from the jump, But I think that can be a really easy misstep that people will sort of make when trying to make this happen.
The fact is that I can also I can point them to the look. This is something I actually do in class, guys. This is the mistake you're going to do. It doesn't matter how many times I tell you, you're going to do this mistake. Yeah. I can really warn them ahead of more common mistake, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I can warn them ahead, but I cannot remove them, because if they don't do them, they will still not know what we're talking. They have to do them. It's it's a feature. Look,
Mm-hmm.
I watch my kids learning stuff, right? And this is another stupid Captain Obvious moment, right? My son, Maxim, if you touch the candle, it burns you. It does not matter how many times I tell him. He does not know it. So it's not, when he will then go with the finger like this on the flame, it's not disobeying me. It's not listening to me. It does not matter how many times I tell him. He does not know that if he touches the flame, it burns.
Mm-hmm.
He has to do it, and it's actually a very good sign that he does it, right? So my job is not to scold him because, oh, I told you that, right? My job is to help him to go slowly close to the flame, so that you feel that it's warm and it's hot, and at some point there's pain, and now I can remove your hand. Did you see that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot take that. It does not matter how many times I tell him, he just doesn't know it. So it's not disobeying me, right? This is not, I really don't believe that this is because he's two. This is because he's a human being. So if I go into my training room, it does not matter how many times I tell them, dude, at your level, if you pass and you hug their head, 9 times out of 10, they will take your back. It does not matter how many times I tell them. If they don't do it, they just don't know it. So, I will create a round, I will create a situation, and I will tell you, you are going to fuck it up this way.
Yeah.
Surprise, they fuck it up that way, right? But now, when I fix it, I need to talk about that fix much less than I would, I don't need to explain you why you need to fix that. You see it why you have to fix that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's easy to want to not let them fail in the first place, but it doesn't help them because they miss all the valuable data that comes with failure.
Yeah, exactly. Because with all the failures and all the all the mistakes and all the failed attempts, and they are building their own database of situations, reactions, feelings, perception, everything. So so my job in the training room is not to avoid that they do mistake. My job is to reduce the number of mistakes they have to do to understand the correct behavior. Because if I don't intervene, maybe they have to grab the head 10,000 times because before a light bulb goes on, and they decide to put an underhook instead of grabbing the head, right? But if I intervene, I can reduce that 10,000 time to 10, 20, 30, not to 0. That simply does not happen. I cannot reduce that number to 0, but I can make it as small as possible, right? So that's what I'm supposed to do as a coach.
Nice. I love that. It's super important to remember that our one of our jobs is to set them up to fail. And not set them up to fail, but to put them in positions where they can fail enough to learn from their failures.
Yeah, they need to explore the territory before we low resolution map, and then we start to talk about a high resolution map. But when you are already starting to orienting yourself on the territory, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point, and it's an important one. Is there anything else you've been working on or thinking about, or that you want to touch on?
Did you have this experience? Techniques emerging in class without you having to explain them, but simply because people look at each other and they're like, "Oh, if he does that, then I can do it too." You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
We were working mount control, and then suddenly this white belt was starting to throw arm bars, and I never explained arm bars to this guy. But what happened is that, exchanging partner all the time and even just looking around, he started to see people going for that. So we tried, and it was not bad. It was not a bad armbar by any stretch of, it was a decent armbar for a guy who's doing it for the first time, without me teaching it. So there is this worm right now going on in my head that is, of course, we should stop thinking that because I'm the coach, if I don't teach something in the room, that thing will never appear, will never be transmitted in the room. I actually don't think I have to teach everything to everyone, because the information will spread in the room anyway. To agree, of course, right?
I mean, I
have this experience.
Definitely seen that, and it was stuff that like I wouldn't expect, because like, okay, an armbar is sort of common knowledge. If you've watched MMA or anything like that, you've seen people attack arm bars, right? But sometimes I see people do stuff that like I didn't even I don't know, I've never emphasized spinning, like think of like a reverse deli heave, or like spin under to like a wrestle up. I was like, bro, I have not shown you that, but this guy did it to you the other day, and then you just went for it yourself and you made it work. And it was a total guy who I like wouldn't assume would even have that in their like toolbox potentially, just given what I assumed of their abilities and whatever. And I see that a lot, which is why sometimes I like when I do like the large group thing, and there's people who are like stuck on the outside for 30 seconds while they're waiting for next turn, because then they get to watch all these exchanges at once, which is why I like that, because I found that. And then I'm having that same feeling you're having, where it's like I don't actually have to cover it all. I don't have to cover all the situations, because I already know they're on YouTube and Instagram later, right? They're already going to see a bunch of jiu-jitsu if they're super interested in seeing more anyways. So what can I do that is that core crux that'll allow them to see a thing and then try a thing, right? Because I think that's part of what we want to do. Like when we think like, I'm not trying to teach fundamentals, but what is the foundation so that they can build and do whatever they want from here. And for me, it's just basic stuff like connection, angle, height, stance. Those are like my 4 big things I try and talk about in everything. And if they can understand those,
please
then they can play.
Them. Please repeat them. Connection.
Yeah, so connection, angle, height, so hip height, head height, and then stance. Just like understanding those shapes of strong stance, weak stance, or weak stance, but I try and make those like the recurring themes, because I think everywhere those things show up,
Yeah, definitely.
And then that's what I emphasize a lot, because then it's like, hey, what do you want to do? You'll see, and they can analyze them like, oh, this is good because great, they're outside the elbows. We got this going on. You got this going on. They can sort of start to evaluate and implement things just based off sort of those broad ideas in themselves. And that's sort of what I really try to emphasize, like whenever I'm teaching.
Common theme, right? Like you want to occupy the space inside, right? For example, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and it's so funny because like I just spoke with my friend on like a previous episode here, and he was like, man, he spends most of his time in their sessions working half guard related scenarios and back mount related scenarios, because he's like, in those two scenarios you're gonna cover a lot of jiu-jitsu. all the core mechanics, all those things, half guard, like all of that. I was like, man, that is really true. You can find a couple of slices that actually give you access to all the main ideas that are so valuable. That's something that I think I'm going to continue trying to pursue. He's like, hey, what can I find is that the slice of the game that teaches so much more of the game all at once.
Yeah, I kind of patched that, creating this class structure where we have the theme of whatever we're working on, and then the positional sparring by those standard position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to totally steal your lesson plan for tonight, try and run my room like yours and see what happens. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'll report back. I'll report back for sure.
Please let me know. Yeah. How did your cornering change since you are...
Mm-hmm. The cornering has definitely changed for me because I used to really try and joystick people way more, like tell them exactly what I wanted them to do. And now I've found it's way easier for me as a coach, and they tend to be more effective because I'm just focusing on the little thing, like the connection, like, hey, we can't let them have hands on your body here, or things like that, and just constantly directing their attention there. And then they're doing all the other stuff because they, I find now it's more just about directing their focus over and over and over, more so than try this, try that, like I feel like now I say much less when they're actually live in competition because they're just going, they're already so proactive, whereas before maybe they were less proactive. They're a lot more inclined to hold or pause and think and whatever, whereas now I think just because of the amount of flight time and like mat hours they have with resistance problem solving all the time, that a little bit of my cornering is like just time, points, urgency at this point, just like those sort of recurring themes is sort of what's tweaked with mine. What's your coaching or your cornering sort of evolved into?
Minimalistic also the cornering,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mostly is where I need them to put attention, like, stay inside or control the elbow, or, keep your knees on the mat. Really, really small cue to keep their intention and their attention where it's supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sense of urgency is interesting. I don't need to create any sense of urgency right now because of the way we train. It's like, what more than that should I put in the system when they are kind of conditioned to go 100% all the time without slowing the pace or anything, right? So sense of urgency is a bit relative.
Yeah.
At the last tournament, my partner pointed it out, and it was actually, when I thought about it, it was actually fun because I could hear the other corner, push the leg, go to the half guard, put the hook, your left hand here and your left hand, and I was on the side going like, control the elbow, do not let your hip touch the mat.
Mm-hmm.
that was it, right? So this contrast was at time pretty funny. Yeah,
that's how I felt.
Yeah, there is also a certain cue and language that we develop in the room that I can bring to cornering, but those are more like inside jokes, I would say. For example, look, there is this thing like, so we follow, for example, this approach where I go like, you will keep the line of your hip connected to the line of their hip, and the line of your shoulders connected to the line of your shoulders, right? And this is true from half guard, mount, back mount, until you are working control. These lines will pretty much be, parallel. But when you want to go into a submission from the back mount or from the mount, for example, the line of the hip will need to go higher and connect to the line of the shoulders between the elbow and the ribs. That's what you want to do. So okay, feel free to cancel this bit if you like, right? But the cue we use in the gym is you have to fuck their armpit. It's
That's awesome. That's
right.
perfect.
And when it comes to cornering, and you start to scream from the corner, fuck that armpit, fuck that armpit.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Hey, but everyone knows what that cue means. So there you go. It's an
right.
effective cue in your room. So
And if you think about it, it's pretty precise, right? You cannot misinterpret it. Yeah.
that was awesome, Francesco. That's great. That's great. Maybe that's where we could stop off with a nice hilarious part like that.
Man, 1 hour and 40 minutes. They went like this for me.
Hey, that man, for me too. That's why I love doing this, because I think when we can just connect with another coach, especially like, hey, you and I, we're not even familiar with like each other's work too deep of an extent. So for us to really just bounce ideas, see what we've had, similar experiences, different experiences, has been a ton of fun. Very, very cool. Yeah, thanks so much for your time, Francesco. This was sick.
Man, thank you for inviting me. Seriously, I'm so happy. Thank you.
Maybe we'll do this again one day, see what your latest revelations are, you know,
absolutely.
6 months, a year down the line, who knows.